Hello dear students. In today's class, we will be talking about one of the very important topics, the literary terms. We all use these literary terms for our prose and for poetries, and everybody has some or the other kind of doubts. Let's look to those important literary terms which we usually use in our poems and in our prose. The first commonly used literary device is an alliteration. An alliteration is derived from the Latin word littera. It means letters of alphabets. It is a stylistic device in which a number of words having the same first consonant sound. This is very important to understand. It is not about the repetition of consonants, it is about the repetition of consonant sound, which occur close together in a series. Generally, when we talk about alliteration, we look for similar consonants. At times, we don't consider the consonant sound. Let's see the example. In the first line, but a better butter makes a batter better. You can see in this entire line, we have repetition of consonant B. This is an easy example of alliteration. Similarly, in the second line, a big bully beats a baby boy. Here also we have a clear repetition of alphabet B. An important point to remember here is that alliteration does not depend on letters but on sound. For example, if we talk about the phrase not naughty, here the first letter of not is N, whereas the first letter of naughty is K. But because both the letters begin with the same consonant sound, so they are alliterative. But the phrase cigarette chase is not. Even though both the words begin with C, it is not alliterative because the sound of the consonants is different. So my dear students, while picking up the words of alliteration from your poem, please pay attention on the consonant sound. If the consonant sound of the words is similar, then they are taken to be alliterative. The second commonly used device is an assonance. Unlike alliteration, assonance is the repetition of vowels. Assonance takes place when two or more words close to one another repeat the same vowel sound but start with different consonant sounds. For example, men sell the wedding bell. Here you can see that the vowel E is repeated in each of the word. So this is an example of assonance. Here, in these words, we do not consider the consonants or the consonant sounds. We only and only look to the repetition of the vowels. The same vowel sound of short vowel E repeats itself in almost all the words, excluding the definite article. You might be seeing that in the above sentence, men sell the wedding bell, we have not taken E of the. So the definite article is excluded from counting in the vowel sound. Common assonance examples are, we light fire on the mountain. In this sentence, light and fire use I and I. So it is an example of assonance. Similarly, I feel depressed and wrestle. Again, The vowel sound of E after R in depressed and the vowel sound of E in wrestle is same. So these E sounds are taken to be in assonance. The next important literary device is onomatopoeia. You might have heard this word many a times. It is one of the literary devices which talks about sounds. It is also known as using the sound words. Onomatopoeia, pronounced as onomatopoeia, is defined as a word which imitates the natural sounds of a thing. It is not necessary that the word used as an onomatopoeic word should have any sense or a meaning, because they are the sound words used by various things. It creates a sound effect that mimics the thing described, making the description more expressive and interesting. If you remember the poem Brook, done in class 9th, we had lots and lots of examples of onomatopoeic words like chatter, chatter. Let's see some other common examples of onomatopoeia. The buzzing bee. Here buzz is the sound created by a bee. So buzzing is an onomatopoeic word. Similarly, the sack fell into the river with a splash. Now splash itself does not has a meaning, but it is merely a sound created. The books fell on the table with a loud thump. He looked at the roaring. The rustling leaves kept me awake. In these sentences, the words which are bold are the sound words. Therefore, they are known as onomatopoeic words. The next literary device commonly used is a repetition. Repetition is a literary device that repeats the same words or phrases a few times to make an idea clearer and more memorable. Now, when we talked about alliteration, it was a repetition of consonant sounds. Assonance was a repetition of vowel sounds, whereas repetition is when the same words or phrases are repeated. For example, you might be remembering the poem that we have already done in class 10. Water, water everywhere, not a single drop to drink. Here, the word water is repeated again and again. Do you remember where did we read it? It was the poem Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. The second example is the president said, work, work and work are the keys of success. The literary device repetition is generally used to put emphasis on the thing that is being said. Like when we are talking about water, water everywhere, that means the narrator is surrounded only and only by water. Similarly, work, work and work, that means there is no other key to success, it is only work. The next literary device very commonly used is a metaphor. A metaphor is a figure of speech that makes an implicit, implied or hidden comparison. Please pay attention, children. It is a hidden or an indirect comparison between two things that are unrelated but which share some common characteristics. In other words, a resemblance of two contradictory or different objects is made based on a single or some common characteristic. The following phrase is an example of metaphor. My brother is the black sheep of the family. Because he is neither a sheep nor is he black. However, we can use this comparison to describe an association of a black sheep with that person. A black sheep is an unusual animal which typically stays away from the herd, and the person being described shares similar characteristic. That means the brother is not a very socializing person. He is unique in the family and he does not mixes easily in the family. Let's see other examples of metaphor. My brother was boiling mad. Now this does not mean that the brother was actually boiling. It implies that the brother was very angry. The assignment was a breeze. It does not mean that the assignment flew away like a breeze. Rather, it means that it was not difficult or it was very easy. It is going to be a clear sky from now on. This implies that clear skies are not a threat and life is going to be without hardships. Similarly, the skies of his future began to darken. This means darkness is a threat. Therefore, this implies that the coming times are going to be hard for him. Next example, her voice is music to his ears. This implies that her voice makes him feel happy. I hope these examples would have made metaphor clear to you. Now let's move to the next literary device, simile. A simile is unlike metaphor. We said that metaphor is an indirect comparison, whereas a simile is a direct comparison where we use comparing words like or as. A simile is a figure of speech that makes a comparison, showing similarities between two different things. Unlike a metaphor, a simile draws resemblance with the help of the words like or as. Therefore, it is a direct comparison. We often hear comments like, John is as slow as a snail. Snails are notorious for their slow pace, and here the slowness of John is compared to that of a snail. Let's see common examples of simile. Our soldiers are as brave as lions. Her cheeks are red like a rose. He is as funny as a monkey. The water well was as dry as a bone. He is as cunning as a fox. So I hope this would have made the comparison between a metaphor and a simile clear. Let's move to our next literary device, personification. As the name denotes itself, personification means putting an idea, an animal, or a non-living thing in place of a human being, or personifying or giving human attributes, human characters to non-living things or animals. So, personification is a figure of speech in which a thing, an idea, or an animal is given human attributes. The non-human objects are portrayed in such a way that we feel they have the ability to act like human beings. For example, the sky weeps. We are giving the sky the ability to cry, which is a human quality. Let's take some common examples. Look at my car. She is a beauty, isn't she? Now, she is used as a pronoun for humans, but here we have not only used she for the car, but we have also said that car is very beautiful. So this is personifying the car. The wind whispered. Here, the slow movement of the wind or the slow noise of the wind is compared to the whispering sound. Who whispers? A human being. So here, the wind is personified. Similarly, the flowers danced in the gentle breeze. The flowers here are personified and are shown as dancing. Let's see the other literary device, oxymoron. Oxymoron is a very interesting literary term. In this, we generally take two words or a pair of words, and each word is in contrast to the other. Oxymoron is a figure of speech in which two opposite ideas are joined to create an effect. The common oxymoron phrase is a combination of an adjective preceded by a noun with contrasting meanings such as cruel kindness or living death. If you see these examples, then both the words are totally in contrast to each other. Cruel and kind are opposites. Similarly, living and death is opposite. Let's see some common examples of oxymoron. Open secret, tragic comedy, seriously funny, awfully pretty. Generally, oxymoron is used either to create a satire or to show a sarcastic comment or at times to create humor. Next literary device commonly used is hyperbole. As the name denotes, hyperbole is speaking something in exaggeration or speaking something too high or too low to be true. Hyperbole, derived from a Greek word meaning overcasting, is a figure of speech that involves an exaggeration of ideas for the sake of emphasis. On one hand, where hyperbole talks about overcasting, and understatement talks about undercasting or speaking too low of an idea, a thing, or a topic. It is a device that we employ in our day-to-day speech. For instance, when you meet a friend after a long time, you say, "It's been ages since I last saw you." You may not have met him for 3 or 4 hours or a day, but the use of word ages exaggerates this statement to add emphasis to your weight. Let's see some common examples of hyperbole. My grandmother is old as the hills. Now, my dear students, it is very important to understand the difference between a simile and a hyperbole. A simile is a direct comparison where we compare two things in similarity, whereas an hyperbole uses exaggerated adjectives to explain a person, animal, thing, or an idea. And hyperbole is generally used to create humor. Your suitcase weighs a ton. Obviously, a suitcase cannot weigh a ton. The heaviness of the suitcase is shown to be in a ton to reflect hyperbole. Similarly, she is as heavy as an elephant. I am trying to solve 1,000,000 issues these days. These all are examples of exaggerating situations. Here are some interesting exercise for you. It would be useful for you if you start read a newspaper or an editorial column or at least one page of any good magazine that you prefer to. Try to take out the examples from your reading text. Write 5 sentences using alliteration, repetition, and assonance. When you are using these 5 sentences, they should show the difference between these 3 literary terms. Make 5 sentences using hilarious hyperbole and make 5 sentences using obvious oxymoron. This exercise should be done in your copy. Thank you. In case of any further queries,